I'm very excited to introduce to you Danielle, who joined Nutraingredients USA in 2019 after making the leap from broadcast news. Today, she delivers the latest news on everything from regulations and dietary supplements to research and gut health to innovations in personalized nutrition. In addition to print, you could also catch Danielle on the Nutracast, an award-winning podcast that takes a deep dive into nutraceuticals. Following the success of Nutracast, Danielle debuted Nutra Women Wednesday in 2021, which recently picked up the Women in Nutraceuticals Champion Award. Prior to joining Nutraingredients USA, she worked as an anchor covering crime, politics, and business, as well as national and world events. Danielle received her journalism degree from the Michigan State University. Thank you for being here on the Go BHB podcast and sharing with us what brought you here today. Let me rephrase my question. Thank you for being here today. And I'm so excited to learn more about you and what brought you into the nutraceutical industry. So to start from the beginning, you've been anchoring and interviewing people from the beginning. What got you started doing that?
Yeah, it was funny because I've been doing this honestly since I was a kid and before I even realized I could make a career out of it. So when I was younger, I would record myself. I don't want to date myself too much, but on like a VHS recorder, my parents had like a camcorder. So I would do like little shows and cooking shows and things like that. And then like I would record radio shows with my tapes and stuff. So I've been doing this for a long time. And then it wasn't until maybe high school when I sat down with my advisor and they're like, why don't you pursue journalism? I was like, actually, that's perfect. So yeah, I've always been passionate about telling people stories and learning more about people.
You're very good at it. She just had me on her podcast, and you know what I loved most is you highlight people's strengths. And I think that's really amazing because it brings out other things they might not have known they'd had. So I loved the interview. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for, I'm excited for that one to debut. I do try to highlight strengths, but yeah, and some people, it's so obvious to me when I look at bios and talk with people, but some people, especially women, we don't always notice that kind of stuff about ourselves. Maybe we're just a little, modest, I guess. But yeah, it is nice to kind of bring that to the fore because I don't think we always fully appreciate ourselves.
You know what? I would agree with that. And I love that you have this podcast where you highlight women and bring into the industry certain things, especially now with the transition and the trends. Are you seeing more of that with women's supplements and dietary things and in the trends?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing more of a focus on women and by women, which is nice because for the longest time it was a lot of research done just by men, and we've all heard of the pink it and shrink it. It's taking something made for men and just making maybe the packaging a little more pink and the dosage a little bit smaller. So it is nice seeing more research for women by women and taking more of a personalized approach. So we're seeing ingredients also that were traditionally seen for men kind of move over to women as well, such as creatine. So it's an exciting time, and I don't know that we'll ever quite catch up, but I think we are, I guess, getting the attention that we finally deserve.
I love that. You guys talked a lot about that as well. There's a big summit coming up in San Diego. We call it SANS for short, Sports Nutrition Summit. And you are chair of the summit. With your background and your role, could you touch on us where the advancing of knowledge in the sports and active nutrition is going to be happening this year?
Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about a few different topics. We're going to have some experts from academia, brands, researchers, legal regulations, a little bit of everybody. Brands like GNC, Unilever, IHERB, Spins, Thorne, Savage, Nutra. So a little bit of everyone. And we're going to be talking about the state of the market. We're going to get into rags, the women's health, of course, my favorite, AI, creatine, innovative ingredients, recovery nootropics, and we're going to wrap things up with a social media panel. So we're going to really get into a lot of different areas. It's going to be really exciting.
I love the summit. I was formerly a delegate there, participated, and this year I will be doing roundtable and talking about some performance innovations. And what was really amazing is each one of the speakers brought so much value. I highly recommend everybody I meet that if they haven't gone, they really need to, because the value and then how well it's put together. You guys do a really fantastic job.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's great, like from a learning experience. A lot of people walk away with some new insights, but also just for the networking. We always have a lot of great networking. We have a networking night where we go bowling and, maybe have a drink or two and just kind of, get some conversations in that we aren't able to fit in during the summit. And it's always such a great time. And there's a lot of people that I see every year that I look forward to seeing, but I also walk away with a few new friends and connections. So I would definitely recommend it too. I'm a little biased, but if you can make it, it's February 19th through the 21st. Yeah.
I love it. You guys, you have to be there. So we'll put a link in in the podcast below so you can go straight to the page. So with nutrition on the rise for women, where do you feel like the biggest gap is and the most support is needed for women specifically?
Um, yeah, for women specifically, I mean, yeah, we're of course complicated and there's a reason we weren't mandated to be included in clinical trials until 1993. But yeah, I mean, I think we're just sort of getting an idea of hormonal health and realizing that it's not just like one, there's a lot of different stages and phases of each woman's life. So, one area of health that I think is interesting is sort of the cycle syncing, kind of eating based on your phase. So like increasing iron during menstruation and then maybe boosting carbs during the follicular phase to support increased energy levels, things like that. And I think that we're getting a lot more research on that. But I don't know that I know one of your questions was sort of like, are we catching up? Can we catch up? I don't think we can ever catch up. I don't think we can really make up for lost time. It's just interesting, like looking at all the things that have been designed specifically for men. And it's not just, studies. It's things like athletic shoes, laptops, countertops. I mean, they're all like, everything's based on this golden rule, which is like the 6'1" man. Um, I recently learned that they even test airbags on male dummies.
Oh,
Like,
how interesting.
why? Like, why are we so discriminated against, even when it comes to like dummies? So it's so bizarre. But I do feel a little bit encouraged. We are getting, like I mentioned earlier, like the attention we deserve. A lot more research is being done on women, and I think that AI is encouraging. I think AI will offer some opportunities to kind of help us get caught up. Um, I was reading about ovulation kits that researchers are sending to participants to help them kind of figure out where women fit in their research. So there are some things out there that I'm looking at that I think are interesting. But yeah, I think just the hormonal aspect of women, I think, is where I see the biggest gap and where we need to do the most catching up at.
I would agree with that. I think there's so little knowledge about, I mean, I'm going to be 40 this year and I still am learning about my hormone changes and perimenopause and menopause. And just, could you imagine if more of that understanding for a young woman who's starting out understood that throughout her life and how it affects her emotions and then the brain chemistry, having that knowledge for our partners to be able to understand us throughout the whole process could be so empowering and just complete, a puzzle that is missing, I think, in frustration when it comes to feeling like there's no hope and that hope is being more created.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah. I just think that, and then just, on a more, consumer level, just that consumer education and getting women up to speed on some things that we didn't grow up. Let's be real, like nobody talked to me about menopause or really any type of hormonal stuff, really. So just getting people caught up on that and just realizing that estrogen levels can fluctuate and that impacts everything, bone health and cycles and performance. So, I was just thinking about this the other day, like, one week I'm like killing it at the gym and I can lift this amount of weight or run this many miles. And then like the next week it's completely different. And then you get down on yourself and then you have to remind yourself, okay, like it's just probably my hormones fluctuating. And one week I might be doing amazing. And the next week I just need to give myself a little more grace.
I love that. I feel like you have been really passionate about this by reading your bio. You talked about your own personal health struggles. Do you want to touch on that as well and what feeds your passion around that?
Yeah. So as far as health goes, I mean, women, I like to write a lot about the gut microbiome and gut health and digestive issues. And a lot of that is just to do with my own personal struggle. I was diagnosed with IBS about 10 years ago. And yeah, that kind of fueled my passion for dietary supplements and probiotics. And this was long before I started writing about nutraceuticals. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, you must take like a million, vitamins now that you." And I'm like, "No, actually, I've been doing this my whole life." So it's actually a really great career to be in because it's just part of something that I've always been passionate about. But yeah, I was diagnosed with IBS about 10 years ago, and women are disproportionately impacted by IBS. So anytime I can learn more about gut health and the latest and greatest probiotics, I'm all about it.
With that note, what would you say has been the most helpful thing? And as far as like having a resource or a place to go to learn more about that for yourself, is there platforms or is there a place where women can count on that is, I mean, there's just so much information out there right now. Where can they go for a trusted resource?
Right. Well, it depends on who you talk with. My best friend, like, she just TikTok University. I mean, that is like where she goes for all of her information. And I'm always like, that's great. There are some people out there that are good, but like make sure they're credentialed, they're a registered dietitian or a doctor or somebody, not just some like paid influencer. So, yeah, I think should you find the right person, I think TikTok is totally fine. For me, like I a little more I benefit from my connections, so I can reach out directly to researchers and people from amazing brands and be like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Would you recommend this product or talk with them in that way? So I have probably an unfair advantage, so I can just kind of reach directly out to whoever. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff out there. But I would say look for, somebody who's got a background in being like a registered dietitian or some type of, digestive type background or doctor.
Credentials are really important, is what I'm hearing you say, just
Yeah.
to make sure you're getting some solid information.
Yeah. Yeah.
With you being in this industry and having seen it grow, where do you see the future of the industry going as a whole? Like before, where you talked about where creatine wasn't talked about or taken and it was considered like the secret ingredient. Is there an ingredient that you kind of see on the rise currently now, where that mind shift has shifted?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, creatine is one that I've been watching for the past few years, and I think that's only going to um, gain more steam. I'm seeing a big movement in people really looking at not necessarily ingredients specifically, but how well they're studied. They're digging into the research. They're noticing like consumers are so much more savvy now. I think they're recognizing the fairy dust. So I think
Yeah.
that yeah, women especially are really reading the labels and they are making sure that the research is sound.
Danielle Masterson, thank you so much for being on here and sharing about what you guys are doing with your podcast and with Sands and all of the future things to come. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with the audience that, around the mindset of just being in this industry that you have as like your mantra or the one thing that keeps you going and making a balanced life?
Hmm. I have on my wall a few like little sticky notes, and I would say one thing that I kind of look at every day is this little quote that just says, if you want better answers, ask better questions. So my biggest thing is asking really good questions. And my favorite compliment will always be, you ask great questions. So that's something that I live by.
Wow, I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to share about how you keep a balanced work life? I know we had talked about this on the other podcast, but I'm excited to hear your answer. With your two kids and being a woman in corporate, how do you put all those things together?
That is a good question. I don't know how well of a job I do juggling it all, but one thing that the way I frame it in my head is I just kind of, the way I prioritize things is, for instance, going to the gym. It's just a non-negotiable for me. So, you wake up every day and you eat breakfast and you get your kids off to school. You go to work. Well, I go to the gym, like it's just kind of built into my schedule. So I try to do it that way. And then as much as I can, I just try to get everything done during the week so I can unplug and just kind of be present with my family on the weekends. Doesn't always happen, but it's always the goal. So those are a few things that I do, just kind of scheduling things out so that it's just part of my day and I don't even think about whether I'm going to do it or not. It's just there.
What have you found to be the most rewarding thing in your job?
In my job, I just think being able to tell people stories is really rewarding. And sometimes it's getting that email from a NutraWoman guest just saying, thanks for interviewing me. I got a lot of great feedback. I have this like newfound confidence. It's things like that are maybe a little unexpected. Of course, you want to tell a good story and get a lot of views or reads or whatever, but it's nice when you hear from the individual or you hear from maybe a viewer or a reader just saying like, I really like that story and I'm going to look into it, or it was helpful to me in some sort of way. Like that's always, I would say, the most rewarding part of my job for me.
You sound like you really like to provide value.
I try.
Well, I hear it. Out of all of the supplements that you take, like you said, for your health and for keeping you strong throughout the month or the week or the day, what is the one thing you personally helps you stay up to speed, energized, and focused?
I take it's called like a super pill or something, and it's a multi. It's got omegas in it. It's kind of all packed into one. And I take a probiotic. I take creatine. I take something for my bone and joint, skin health. I know I'm missing something else, but I take quite a bit of stuff. But I would say the one thing that I have to take every day that I've been taking for 10 years now is a probiotic. And that helps me with all my gut issues. I'm also prone to UTIs, so that helps in that area as well. So probiotics are the one thing that I have to take every day.
And I highly recommend it, you guys. If she's recommending it and she's done the research, you need to put it on the docket.
I've done the research, but I just anecdotally, I mean, it's made a world of difference for me. Like I can feel it. Like if I stop taking a probiotic or if I run out and, I wait too long to order it, like I can feel it. So I have to.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
All right, last question, because I'm curious, because you've been in the industry for so long. With how women's health is different than men's health, how do you feel like you have seen the evolution of how women are treated in the workplace versus men, not just in the supplements and then the studies, but maybe like the mindset, as there's, corporate is known for being like this very masculine, energized, focused. And now women are kind of coming into the picture and becoming, more top executives, more CEOs, and a little bit more in the innovative realm of trying to bring to light new ways of doing business, I would say.
Well, I've been in this industry now, it'll be 6 years in the fall. So it's been, the way I've been treated, I've worked in kind of different areas. So I started off in news, and I can tell you that I was often compared to my male counterpart all the time. There are a lot more focus on appearance, the way I pronounce things, data, always being corrected. Can you speak more like so and so? Can you do it more like that person? Your necklace was distracting today. It's a lot of stuff like that. And so thankfully I don't have to deal with that anymore. But it's definitely changed for me in that sort of way. I feel a lot more respected and heard. But I think it's just in general, just the people who I'm working with and who I'm working for. Also, I'm older. I think as you age, you do get a little more respect. I think when you look younger, people just don't respect you as much. So I think there's a few factors in there, but in general, I think women are a lot more respected now. I think that there's a lot more awareness as well. Organizations like Women in Nutraceuticals, they're really bringing that conversation out and pointing out the gender parity and just getting people to think about it. I think there's a lot of men out there that, it's not that they don't care. They just, if it's not affecting them or their day to day, or maybe they don't have daughters, they're not thinking about it as much.
Overall, it sounds like just an awareness, like with studies with nutrition, how very different, not just our bodies function, but how our brains work. Just like you said, the pathway of thinking, right? Some of us are looking at very specific details in a certain way. And so I like that you pointed out that it's really kind of a mindset thing overall. And then just the more conversations that get to be had, the more things that get to be better to have. So
yeah, I just think bringing up the conversation point and just bringing up gender parity and just having women feel a little more seen and respected. And I do see that. I do hear, just speaking with some younger women in the industry, their experiences are very different than some of the women that are older that I interview and their experiences. And there's been situations where they just weren't even invited to certain outings because it was, a men's golf outing or something like that, where that would never happen today. So regardless of the industry, I do believe it's getting better.
Well, thank you for being on. And where people can find you is your podcast. And then where else is all your platforms located?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can just look up Danielle Masterson. You can look me up on our website, Nutraingredientsusa.com. Just you can look up my name or find the podcast listed on there. So those are my two main platforms where you can find me.
Thank you so much.
Next month at Sands.
Yes, you guys, you have to be there at Sands, and we really look forward to. I'll be there, so I'm excited and to rekindle and to have conversations. So thank you for being on today.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please share it and help us keep the conversation going.